Well, I mean, I'm glad you brought up the Crucible because was that a daunting thing to do because everybody feels like they know
Well,
that piece, and there's a kind of proprietorship people have over Arthur Miller.
okay, this is weird. I had never read it.
What?
When I auditioned, I had never read The Crucible.
How was that? I'm saying.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
I don't, everybody, everybody's read it. I, for some reason, had...
Where'd you go to high school? You didn't have to read The Crucible.
I think they did a production of it before I got in high school, when my sister was in high school, but I saw pictures of it in her yearbook. I had never read it, and I think it was to my advantage because I auditioned 2 or 3 times for that role. Because Elizabeth, that was one of the last things that I auditioned for, was for that. And there was, Elizabeth Proctor is played a certain way, and there's a stereotypical way that she's played, and we want to avoid that. And I just kind of heard that as a rumor, and I thought, I don't know, I have no preconceived notion of her. So it doesn't, I don't feel bound to anything, and I have no image of anybody playing it. And I think there's the self-righteous part of her, that's a danger, it's a trap of the character, but I really wasn't aware of it. And so I just went in and read and admitted to Nicholas Heitner, the director, that I had never read it before or seen it, and maybe that was to my advantage, I would think, possibly.
And I'm sure you got a chance to talk to Arthur Miller about that too, didn't you?
He was on set a little bit, not.
Because I heard he was a lot. Was he not on?
But he was. He would come periodically, and hang out on the set. We took our little boat over to Hog Island, where we built Salem Village. It was a very cool working experience. Yeah.
And did you get to talk to him about it? I'm sure not at length, but at some
point.
Not
at length. But I talked to him. That was a little. There's a little bit of an icon thing with Death of a Salesman, and I think. I felt maybe a little bit, he was lovely, but I didn't really sit down and have long conversations with him. I think he was one of those people that I felt a little, at that time, like, I don't know.
Wow, okay.
I kind of admired, put him on a pedestal, I think, a bit.
But another person, we were talking about the stage thing, you a lot of stage people in that, and a director who'd come from stage.
Yes.
To do this movie.
Yes, and a lot of stage actors in the supporting roles too. Yes.
Did you guys do a rehearsal period where you basically just sat with the text?
We did.
Like it was a play?
I think we had about a week or so, not a really long rehearsal period, but we had about a week. We went over, because they built Salem Village on this island, which was a preserve off the coast of Massachusetts. And so we would actually go over, we would take the boat over, and we'd get to rehearse some on the island. But certainly, maybe it might have been 2 weeks, but it was not more than 2 weeks. But we did have the opportunity to have some rehearsal.
I'm just saying, I saw this sort of continuum in your life that I just wondered, clearly it wasn't a conscious thing for you because you looked at me like, you must be out of your mind to bring this up, so I won't talk about it anymore. But once I did ask you something once that sort of shocked me. You said you don't like scary movies.
I don't. I can't watch scary movies.
The first movie you're in is the serial killer movie, for God's sake.
Well,
did you not know?
Well, that's different to me than, I guess, like...
Hannibal Lecter's in the movie you're in.
Well, that's more suspenseful or something.
He eats people, Joe.
I can't do like paranormal activity and those kinds of things and Chainsaw Massacre stuff, and Carrie's really hard for me. I can't really watch Carrie.
You told me this because your daughter. What did your daughter say to you when you said this?
Yeah, what was it that she said to me? It was on a few years ago, and I couldn't even be in the room with the music. I had to go into the bedroom and say, I can't even listen to this music. And it's odd which ones just sort of strike me. When I was a kid, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte. Remember those?
Those are terrible. I'm sorry.
I know they were, but when I was a kid, they were just, when Joan Crawford, takes the lid off and there's a dead rat sitting there. Those things just...
That's artisanal food in New York now.
Yeah,
those
exactly.
Dead rats. That's a new cuisine. But I mean, it's funny because you've been in so many movies that are kind of operatic in their way. And then I often think these horror movies, something like Carrie, which has two great performances. The first time two actresses were nominated for Oscars for being in a genre film.
Yes.
And I just figured for that reason alone to see Piper Laurie and Sissy Spacek, you would like that.
Yes, they are very good. And I mean, I caught a little bit of Piper Laurie as I was walking through. I was just like, I don't know if I can watch this.
What happens when you must have been offered a couple of movies like that, did you?
I haven't. I just did a Stephen King film, which it was a low budget, called A Good Marriage, and I don't know what its future is going to be. But where I find out that I'm married to a serial killer after 25 years of marriage. And so it's they're shopping it around right now. I don't really know what its future is going to be, but it was fun playing suspenseful. Okay. I did really enjoy that, walking around my house not knowing if my husband was going to jump out and stab me in the throat or something, that actually was fun, and I hadn't really done that before, that kind of suspense.
And who's the writer-director on
this? Stephen King wrote the screenplay.
Oh my gosh.
He did. Wow. And
did you get to meet him?
No, he didn't come. Actually, he didn't come. And Peter Askin was a director, and Anthony LaPaglia is in it as well. Is
he your husband?
Yes, he plays my husband.
We know he's a killer. If it's Anthony LaPaglia.
Sorry, spoiler. Too late.
Well, maybe he's not. Maybe we don't know. We don't. But because again, when you told me this, and I just said, "But you're in the first Hannibal Lecter adaptation, and it's truly a scary movie." I mean, again. God, Brian Cox, another stage actor. I mean, it's full of stage actors, that movie.
Yes, and he was very scary in it. Maybe it's different being in it when you're making it than watching it,
What was it like the first time you watched Manhunter?
I remember liking it. It's quite a while ago now.
It was scary. It's a really intense movie, and for those of you who haven't seen it, it does something really smart. You never know what Hannibal Lecter did, which makes him, I think, it makes him far scarier than in Silence of the Lambs. You don't know what he's done.
Yes, it's been so long since I've seen it. I'm going to have to watch it again.
I've only seen it the one time.
Wow. Good. Yes.
I'm sorry. For some reason, it stuck out at me. I don't know. Maybe the actress in it. I don't want to say too much. But, but when you first saw it, given your, squeamishness around these kinds of movies.
I think when you've worked on something, I don't know if I can ever completely watch it objectively. Okay. I think I get better the first time I watch it. I definitely can't be objective. I'm going, what was I doing that day? And what, that was a hard day, and we got rained out, and we had to do this. I'm kind of thinking about the actual experience of what shooting it on that particular day was. The second time around, I can be a little more objective, but I don't know that I ever really reach a fully objective place. And I don't really watch my films after. I watch them when they come out, and I really don't watch them again. So.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So when one turns up on television and you're in a hotel room or something, what do you do?
I really don't watch it. I kind of go, oh, that's on, and I'm not a big television person myself anyway, so that's not often an issue. But yeah, once in a while, I think Pleasantville's been on, and every once in a while I'll sit down and, if it's on, and I'll go, oh, yeah, I remember that scene. But I'm not really interested in watching things.
Does your daughter watch them?
Not that much. Okay. She's watched a few now, and she's catching up more and more. It's to me, I'm kind of more interested in the future than what I've done in the past.
I guess if anybody has any questions here, we'll take a couple questions from anybody with a question. Yes.
Now we know that you've done like scary movies.
Yes.
And so, what kind of movies do you like?
I like, and I do like suspenseful films. I can deal with those.
For example.
What was that film that Nicole Kidman did? The Others, something like that. I liked that film, but it was eerie. It was eerie, but I liked that movie. Yes, it was rather. That one was rather scary. I was kind of edging out there. I think. I actually like all kinds of films. I think it depends on what I'm in the mood for. I love big blockbuster films if they're well, I just
you?
want it to be well
you go,
done.
You go to.
If it's well done, I love, Last Spider-Man, and I like to laugh. I love documentary films. I like series films. I think it's just like depends on how I feel on the day. I like movies to forget and just, be entertained, and I like movies that make me think and have to work at them. And so I really like variety.
But that seems to be the kind of movie you're attracted to as a performer, movies that make you think and that you have to work.
So.
I mean, it really is kind of key for you, is it not?
I think so. I'm drawn to those, and I think maybe those kind of come my way more. Maybe I'm known in the business that way a little bit, and so maybe some of those scripts come my way a little more often too. So.
Yeah. Is there another question? 'Cause I'm just yes.
Yes. What kind of movies did you saw on this festival?
What have I seen? I've seen 12 of the films, and I've from all over. One from Sweden, Germany, France, U.S., several, Georgia, and it's been really very interesting. I've never been on a jury before. It's my first time on a jury.
What's that like?
I'm really enjoying it. It's a
together?
big responsibility, though. I find it's
Do you talk after every film? Do you guys do that, or how do you work?
Well, I watched most of the films before I came. They sent them to me before, which I actually liked doing because I could watch one of them and then I could reflect on it, and I wasn't watching and like bang, 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 so that it becomes like which film is. So in the last few weeks, I've gradually watched the movies, and I've watched 2 here, and it's been very enjoyable. And the other jury members, we're starting to have conversations. We had a conversation this morning. We're starting to talk about them, and we'll do our deliberations on Saturday. And it's a really interesting process. And we're all taking it very seriously because the winner gets $100,000 to make their next film, and it's a big deal. And so we're all taking it very seriously, and I am interested to see what young filmmakers around the world are making and what they're interested in and topics that they're interested in and what stories they're interested in telling.
Have you been to a lot of film festivals with your films at all?
I have in the past. I've been to quite a few.
And do you like that process of going and premiering a film at a festival?
I do. I have enjoyed it in the past. Yeah, quite a bit. Particularly. Sometimes you get to go to really beautiful places, like Telluride is gorgeous. You get to go to Telluride, Colorado is kind of heavenly. And
I saw you up there with your film there, and it was like 10 years ago now.
Yes, the Sally Potter film. And I think it's a great venue for films and edgier films and maybe more thought-provoking ones or not as mainstream. So I enjoy it.
Do you have a question? Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask, what would be your ideal director, but not asking for the names, but just for the
ideal type of director.
Type of the way he approaches you or works with you, and try to forget that your friend director is you.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe you made it director.
Well, yeah, so besides Tina, who else would be your ideal director?
But you're asking what qualities really I like. What type of quality in a director? To be loved unconditionally. To be loved, to basically, I want to feel like the director loves me and will support me in what I'm trying to do, that I'm not afraid, that if I make a mistake, it's actually okay, that I like directors who really like actors. I wouldn't want to work with a director who doesn't. Directors who appreciate that acting is hard and vulnerable, and are really, they're like rocks, and that I feel that they love me.
It's funny because even though some of the directors you work with have reputations for being kind of tough people,
yes,
for the most part they've delivered a lot of performances that have got awards and got a lot of attention and been films that have been enduring. So obviously that means something to you too. You want to work with directors who create a legacy, don't you?
Yes, well, yeah, I want to work with directors who are bright, you know, have a point of view, have interesting stories they want to tell, you know, I am more. If it's something that I'm in that's going to last for a long time, I want it to hopefully have some meaning. You know, it's going to be around for a while. I want my daughter 20 years from now to not go, oh my God, my mom did that movie. You know, I'd like her to go, good going, Mom. That was a good choice.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
There's another question here. Because one of the things I was wondering is, have you thought about directing yourself?
No, I thought about it and I thought, no, I don't want to.
Why not?
It's not. My brain doesn't work that way at all. I don't see the big picture, and I really see a character, and how that character maybe can fit in, and I don't have the big picture. It's hard for me to tell other people what to do in a way that's loving and support. I don't like doing that. And I wouldn't even really know how to. It's to me, it's a very different wiring. For me, and not all actors. Some actors are, you know, transition great, but that's just the way it is for me.
Well, because I'm glad you asked a question about directors, because I've talked to so many actors who say I became a director because I realized I worked with so many directors who didn't know how to talk to actors. Mm-hmm. And there are, as I'm sure you've encountered, some out there who just kind of, okay, can you do it faster, brighter?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I've heard actors go, I don't know what that means, brighter. You want me to be smarter? You want me to use a light bulb? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And you must get that sometimes too, with directors who just give you these kind of vague goal-oriented directions instead of helping you figure out who the character is.
Sometimes, but sometimes you just need to go faster. And it's good when the director tells you, you got to go faster. Really? I translate it. So, I mean, if that's all the director says, that's not great. But if it's a director that I really trust and just says, you know, you got to go faster on this, really? I go, yeah. Let me try that. Let me do it, because sometimes you just do need to be faster. So it's not all, you know. It's a combination of feeling and technique. You know, you have to have technique with your work. You can't just be an actor. You know, and I have all this feeling. You know, it's not about. You have to have access to that.
Sure, but it's a skill after a while, isn't it?
Pluck it and pull it and shape it, and you have to have technique to utilize it to advantage, and sometimes things need to be faster. So,
because you've also worked with a number of directors kind of at the beginning of their careers, like Gary Ross. That was only Michael Mann's second film you made with him.
Yes.
I mean, you work with a number of people who were just getting started at this.
Yes.
What's that like to...
Well,
Rod Laurie was just...
Rod Laurie was, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's, you know, it can be great. It's a bit of a gamble. You know, you never really know. And you know, I've worked, you know, with one or two first-time directors that I just would have liked to have gotten, that they were stronger and that they were more confident with what they were doing. And then I've worked with some, you know, directors who hadn't done very much that it went well. And it's kind of a gamble. You never really know what, you know, what you're going to get. But in general, I prefer directors who have had a little more experience. That makes me feel a little more secure.
There's another question here, because one of the things I was wondering too is you haven't repeated with a lot of directors.
No.
And I wonder what that's. Do you just like to find different experiences and go out to different people? I don't know that many actors. I mean, there certainly are the Robert De Niro's and stuff who repeat with certain directors that are kind of their muse in a way, and I just, you know, I haven't really had that. I don't know if I've had that. I haven't had that experience, but yeah, I was wondering about that. And then you got to go from Paul Greengrass then to Tony Gilroy, and who was writing the movies, who became the director, right? I mean,
I'm sorry, who?
You got to talk to Tony Gilroy, who like directed and written.
Yes. But I only had one scene in the Bourne Legacy.
But you're in it.
But I am in it.
I'm sorry.
One afternoon.
One afternoon?
That's all I shot for. Yes. I got on set at like noon, and I was done at 6:30.
But like that, don't you?
That was not bad. that was actually pretty good. But what the intention behind that was is they were hoping that Matt Damon will want to do another one. He didn't want to do Legacy, and so they had this debate, from my understanding, for a while, whether to make Jason Bourne like James Bond. Do we want to recast him and have have a new Jason Bourne? And I think Universal made the decision that they didn't want to do that. They were hoping that maybe in a few years Matt will want to reprise his role, and they wanted to keep some of those linchpin characters like David Strathairn and me, Scott Glenn, just maybe to keep us in there enough. So,
people were reminded they're seeing a Bourne movie.
If there's a 5,
Is there a 5?
I have no idea.
We won't tell anybody. I swear it stays in this room.
I have no knowledge of it.
We're in Poland. This is like international waters here. We won't tell anybody. I know I've said this to you before, but you were in one of my favorite films by one of my favorite directors. That's, I think, his most emotional film, and that's Face Off, which I think is a kind of a remarkable performance, because you really are the emotional center of the movie. And I want you to talk about what John Woo is like.
Oh, he was so great, because he, he's known for his balletic, amazing, huge, epic, pyrotechnic shots, and he was so invested in the family portion of the story. He said, none of this will work if we don't care about this family, and if we don't care what happens to them. And I was so touched that this, he's an iconic director to me, was very, very interested and understood that the film really needed that in order to work in its totality. And I enjoyed working with him. I remember one scene, was a bedroom scene, and they were setting the camera up, and it seemed like, well, maybe if I did, they call it a banana, when you kind of walk, to accommodate the camera. And we were rehearsing it, and I started doing it, and he pulled me aside and he said, you don't move for the camera moves for you. So I was like, well, I can help you out, but he said, no, you don't, we'll move for you. And he was so respectful of actors in the process, and I adored him. He was a lovely person to work with.
Were you familiar with his work before you'd done the movie, or did you catch up after?
Some after, yeah. But I haven't seen it. Actually, I haven't seen a ton of his stuff. I don't know what he's even done most. Has he directed recently?
He did an international production a couple years ago. The sad thing about him is that so many of his great moves are stolen by American directors. He did all this great work in Hong Kong.
Yes.
And his work is so widely imitated, but that by the time he got here, it's sort of like being a hip hop artist having all your beats stolen by other people. I mean, it's sort of like being, Little Richard, who's been covered by Pat Boone. I mean, it's because he's such an original.
Yes.
And the stuff is polite. But again, the reason I mentioned that scene that you in that movie earlier is because it's such an emotional scene what I think of you as being so good at doing. There's this kind of pearl of storytelling in a few lines, and the horror is striking you because you're saying this out loud for the first time.
Yes.
What was he like in directing you in that scene? What did he say to you? Do you remember?
I don't. We're going back now about, my daughter's 20. We're going back like 17 years or something like that. I don't remember specifically what he said to me, but I just know in general he was very present and very supportive and understood that we had to care about these people.
Apropos of that, and this will be my last question before we go, you worked with a lot of actors giving big performances, and you've been sort of like that movie, you're surrounded by John Travolta doing a Nicolas Cage impression, and Nicolas Cage doing more Nicolas Cage than he normally even does, because he's got to pretend he's not Nicolas Cage, but you think about all these big performances you've been in, these big movies, these big performances. What do you tell, in terms of sort of trying to create a believable space in these movies that often are operatic, what do you tell yourself as a performer to prepare for that? To be as real as possible, what do you say?
Yeah, I just go for real, and the the way it's shot, and I just kind of, that part of the story too is, I just believed that this woman didn't know who her husband was, and I approached it from a very real place. and let Mr. Wu and the other scenes, which are Nicolas Cage it's a very big performance, a very colorful performance. And
I almost wonder how you could, and I know you're a professional, but how you watch John Travolta do that stuff without laughing when he's playing with his hands, like he's doing magic tricks in the shot.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. Well.
Bite your lower lip, or think about put a pin in your foot, or what do you do?
No, I guess I think I was, well, working with John Travolta, and there was a scene where John Woo decided that he needed to kiss my foot, and I thought, I was like, John Travolta, my sister's not going to believe that this is happening, that John Travolta's going to be kissing my foot. I kind of was a little outside of it. It was like,
I'm sorry. But you like big pieces, don't you? I mean, it's almost like these movies you're doing could, in some ways, we talked about this, a number of them could have been stage pieces. I mean, they've been on these sort of big emotional scales. You really respond to that, don't you?
yeah, I do. I like it. And this other big film, that Death Race.
Oh, God,
which
yes.
was this huge, and that was so fun to do.
And you're really mean in that.
I was really mean in that, and I had so much fun going to work every day, because it's actors like to play different things too, and it's fun to be in something that is, as outrageous, and be a warden of this men's prison that they drive to the death, and it was.
Gee, sounds like a horror movie. You describe it that way.
I can't see it.
What did you think when they sent you Death Race? You go, wow.
I loved it. I loved it. Well, because even though I want a story that makes me want to turn the page, as long as I want to turn the page, I can be with it. If I don't want to turn the page, then I go, I'm not so sure. On Death Race, I wanted to turn the page. I wanted to see what was going to happen next and what was going to happen. I cared about what was the main character, what he was going through, even though it's kind of this big crazy film, I still cared, I was connected, I was interested, and if I want to go like that, then.
But your character is not, as you've so often been, she's not the emotional center of this movie.
No. No, well, that was a good thing.
Maybe I should say she's not the big beating heart of this movie.
No, and that was great. I liked that she wasn't.
But some of these things, though, I mean, you look at the ice storm and you go, how do I, because there's so much craziness going on in some of these things. I mean, again, because they are so operatic, it really is just that thing, as long as you're compelled by the story, you want to be in it.
Yeah.
This explains a lot about your career. I mean, because these have been these really heightened experiences, these movies that you've been in.
Well, I like a good story, and I like when it's well written and well told. And I've worked with then the people involved, the directors and the other actors. I've been fortunate to work with really great people.
But you never even wanted to direct a piece for the stage?
No.
It could be smaller?
No.
Okay, then. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Okay. So, which director you felt you loved most by?
I knew you. Thank God. I
Loved
could.
me the most?
No. Yes, who loved you? Yes.
Oh, well, there have been... Paul Greengrass was so kind to me, because that character was very difficult for me. The kind of language that she had to speak, which was CIA speak, which was not emotional, was very hard for me to memorize. Sure. And, I had some breakdowns on the set, because I'm, very studious, and I like to come very prepared to work. And Paul could not have been kinder and more supportive. It's like, don't worry, darling, we're cutting. It's going to be absolutely fine. You can do this. He was right up there on the list. And then I've worked with Sally Potter, who's a wonderful, brilliant English director. And we actually had about a month of rehearsal before I did this small film with her called Yes. And so it was almost like doing a play.
But it's both emotional and abstract at the same time.
Yes.
There's a lot going on in that movie.
Yes, and it was all written in iambic pentameter, so it was a completely rhyming piece of material. And we had more rehearsal, and I got to know her as a person, and she's very, very nurturing and supportive of actors and the process of acting.
And let's thank Joan Allen for being here.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thanks, Elvis.